Discussion on dead zones is about that is on oceanography, that is dead zones and its impact on the marine ecosystem. The question reads like, what are the consequences of a spreading of dead zones on marine ecosystem? Now the answer is about the consequences of the spreading of dead zones. So there are three catchwords here. One is what is marine ecosystem, that's one. Second is the dead zones, and what exactly are going to be the consequence of the spread of these dead zones on the marine ecosystem. Dead zones are hypoxic. Hypoxic means they are going to be some of those regions that go on to have a low oxygen content. They are hypoxic, low oxygen areas in the marine ecosystem. These are areas of water bodies where the aquatic life cannot go on to survive because the oxygen levels are very low. These dead zones are caused by excessive nutrient discharge and its concomitant effects such as eutrophication. So when there is excessive amount of nutrient discharge, when there is a good amount of a trophic matter, it's called as eutrophic and eutrophication, and that causes such type of impact. So it has a concomitant effect such as eutrophication coupled with other factors that deplete the oxygen required to support most marine life in bottom or the near bottom water. And how is it that they're going to get depleted? They're going to get depleted because as there is a high amount of a nutrient, this nutrient causes algal growth. When the algae go on to decay, they go on to extract all the oxygen, and that is how the marine waters become deficient in oxygen. As waters become deficient in oxygen, in turn they also going to lead to a death of a good number of fishes in the zone, in the region. Dead zones result from these impacts, which include algal blooms and hypoxia. Excess nitrogen and phosphorus cause an overgrowth of algae in a short period of time, and that's going to be called by algae blooms. When some type of algae blooms are large and produce chemicals or toxins, the event is going to be called by the name of harmful algal bloom. HAB is what we're going to be calling it is. The overgrowth of algae consumes oxygen, blocks the sunlight from underwater plants. When the algae eventually dies, the oxygen in the water is consumed. The lack of oxygen makes it difficult for aquatic life to survive in the region. Now, that is going to be one part of it. It was of course not asked, but we are explaining this topic. How is it that the dead zones evolve? And only when you have known how is it that the dead zones have evolved, you can go to understand its consequence of its spread in the marine ecosystem. The consequence of a spreading, the damages or the hazards that are going to be called by the HABs or the dead zones are, one of them is algal blooms cause massive fish mortality, while others, when eaten by marine animals such as shellfish, enter the food web as toxins, and they're going to prove dangerous to humans and other elements. We are talking about fish mortality, that means large en masse fish death. And when they are going to be eaten by marine animals, then of course that goes on to lead to its movement in the entire of the biological cycle. Second is some forms emit toxic aerosols as they go on to decompose. That can go on to cause respiratory problems. Marine biotoxins and harmful algae pose a significant extensive threat to human health and fisheries throughout the whole of the world. The third effect is one obvious cause of this effect was high demand for oxygen by the bloom biomass, particularly during the decay phase. As it is that these type of toxins go on to decay. In the process of its decay, they go on to withdraw a huge amount of oxygen. And that goes on to exhaust the dissolved oxygen from the surrounding water, thus depriving this oxygen for other type of fishes and associated fauna. The fourth is decaying of the bloom, that is algal bloom, or the dead zones you're going to be calling it. that utilizes dissolved oxygen from the waters, creating oxygen deficient conditions, anoxia, that will go on to cause us the death of the invertebrates. Fifth is the polymers secreted out into the surrounding by some blooms render the water viscous and makes it too difficult for the fishes to pump their waters into their gills. Now that is going to be a very, very harmful effect. Some species with spiny structures cause irritation to the fish gills, and they start releasing mucus which goes on to damage the gills also in this case. The seventh is going to be associated with heavy blooms cause hindrance to fishing operations and their weight at times damages the fishing net. And that is an economic part of it. But we come to the real danger. The real danger comes from the toxic forms. Often their toxins enter the food chain of clams, mussels, oysters, scallops. The major adverse effects caused by the toxins through shellfish are PSP, that we're going to be calling it by the name of paralytic shellfish poisoning, DSP, diuretic shellfish poisoning, NSP, neurotoxic shellfish poisoning, and ASP, amnesic shellfish poisoning. And that is how the dead zones and the spread of it go on to affect the whole of the marine ecosystem.